Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so if you're an engineering student trying to wrap your head around fluid mechanics, you're probably staring at textbooks full of Greek letters and long derivations thinking, how am I ever going to actually use this in real life? Well, let's completely change that perspective right now. We aren't just looking at scary math today. We're unlocking the ultimate cheat codes for the physical world. Honestly, fluid dynamics is basically just universal accounting. Once you know the rules, you can predict exactly how the physical world behaves. It's a total game changer. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be covering 1. Universal rules, 2. Mass balance, 3. The continuity equation, 4. Momentum balance, 5. Bernoulli's theorem, and finally 6. The frictionless equation. Let's jump right in. Part 1. The universal accounting rules. We're playing by the universe's rules. All right, so here's the big secret. Fluids literally cannot cheat the universe. But how exactly do engineers track fluid when it's constantly moving and changing shape? I mean, you can't exactly put a flowing river on a bathroom scale, right? We need a system that is as reliable as a banker tracking every single penny in a vault. The absolute golden rule of unit operations is this: input equals output plus accumulation. But as engineers, we usually design for what we call a steady-state system. Basically, this means conditions don't vary with time, making the accumulation zero, nil, nada. So our big complex equation simplifies to something incredibly beautiful. Input equals output. What goes into the pipe must come out of the pipe. Exactly. Moving right along to part 2, tracking the mass balance, the ultimate conservation law. Here is the ultimate conservation law of the universe, applied directly to our field. For any operation carried out under steady-state conditions, the mass of the material entering is exactly equal to the mass of the material leaving. This logic applies to, say, an entire complex chemical plant or just a single simple pipe. Bottom line, you can't magically create mass, and you definitely can't destroy it. Part 3. Deriving the continuity equation. Let's take this concept and turn it into an actual tool. Picture a stream tube where the cross-section changes size. Think of a pipe getting narrower. On the left side, the entrance, the fluid has a specific average velocity, U1, a cross-sectional area, A1, and a density, ρ1. Then, on the right side at the exit, it has a new velocity, U2, a new area, A2, and a new density, ρ2. Now, because flow can't magically escape through the solid walls of this tube, we can anchor all these variables directly to our mass balance rule. Let's walk through the mathematical progression step by step, so you can see this is just simple logic, not some magical leap. Step 1, the rate of mass entering the system is the density times the velocity times the area, so ρ1 times U1 times A1. Step 2, the rate of mass leaving is simply ρ2 times U2 times A2. And step 3, because this is a steady flow, we just equate them. The mass entering simply must equal the mass leaving. And boom, which gives us this, our very first major cheat code. M dot, which is the mass flow rate, equals density times velocity times area. And that whole thing remains constant throughout the entire system. This is the equation of continuity, and it's incredibly practical. For example, if you're dealing with incompressible fluids, like water, the density doesn't change. So if you shrink the area of a pipe, the velocity absolutely must increase to keep the equation balanced. Kind of like putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose. It works perfectly to find velocities through different pipe diameters. Part 4. Tracking the momentum balance. Let's talk forces and changes. We all know Newton's second law, right? Force equals mass times acceleration. Well, in fluid mechanics, we translate this into the momentum balance. It states that the resultant of all forces acting on a body is proportional to the time rate of momentum change of the body. Let's put that in plain English. If you have unbalanced forces acting on a fluid, they are going to cause changes in how that fluid moves. It's either going to accelerate or decelerate. Simple as that. All right, part 5, Bernoulli's theorem explained. This is the crown jewel, guys. This brings us to the absolute climax of today's explainer, the most famous theorem in all of fluid mechanics. Here is the formal textbook definition. In a steady, irrotational flow of an incompressible fluid, the total energy at any point is constant. Just like mass in equals mass out, Bernoulli's theorem basically tells us that total energy going in equals total energy coming out, assuming a potential frictionless flow. To actually derive this theorem, we just take Newton's second law and look at 3 specific forces acting on a little element of our stream tube. First, the upstream pressure force pushing it forward. Second, the downstream pressure force pushing back against it. And third, the force of gravity physically pulling it down. Balance those three forces against the rate of change of momentum, do a little bit of calculus, and you unlock the theorem.
Part 6, the frictionless Bernoulli equation. Time to read the math.
And here it is, the famous frictionless Bernoulli equation. Pressure divided by density plus gravity times height plus velocity squared divided by 2 equals a constant. Now, don't just memorize this string of variables. You need to learn to read this like a plain English sentence. Let's break down each term. Every piece of this equation represents energy per unit mass, measured in joules per kilogram. The first term, P over rho, is your pressure energy. The second term, G times Z, is your potential energy, which is based on how high the fluid is. And the third term, U squared over 2, is your kinetic energy, based on how fast the fluid is actually moving. So read the sentence. Pressure energy plus potential energy plus kinetic energy never changes. If a fluid flows down a hill, it loses potential energy, which means it must gain kinetic energy and speed up, or it has to increase in pressure. It is a perfect continuous balancing act. Now, in practice, engineers actually use two different ways to write this exact same equation. We just looked at energy per unit mass, in joules per kilogram. But if you divide every single term by gravity, you convert the entire equation into what we call head units, measured in physical meters of the flowing fluid. So you get pressure head, potential head, and velocity head. It's the exact same universal accounting, just viewed through a slightly different lens. So look at that. You've mastered mass balance, momentum balance, continuity, and the frictionless Bernoulli equation. You literally have the cheat codes for perfect theoretical flow. But here is a question I want to leave you with. We assumed frictionless flow to make the math clean and easy, but what happens when the real world adds fluid friction? When fluid scrapes against the actual walls of a pipe, creating skin friction and boundary layers? Mechanical energy converts into heat and our constant total energy starts to drop. How do we account for that loss in our cheat codes? Well, we'll tackle exactly that next time. Thanks for joining the explainer and keep looking for the structure and the science.